We have something very, very special and valuable for you today in the presence of Ms. Jane Elfers, who's the CEO, President of Lord & Taylor. You've seen the posters, right? And therefore, out of my pleasure to have her here, I would like to say a few words about her background, very brief, because she will talk to you. And good afternoon. I don't think I have anything special to tell the registered students of CL 112, except make sure you turn in your field trips. Don't wait till the last minute, because it would not be in your favor. Many of you, I'm proud to say, handed in their field trips already. So please continue to do so, because we have to enter them in your record book, and it takes time. Miss Elfers, a most recognized person in the retail industry. She's an innovative leader, always ahead of her time. She became the president and CEO of Lord & Taylor at the age of 39 in June of 2000, becoming the second female president of the 181-year-old elegant retail establishment. Lord & Taylor has been in existence for 181 years, and that says a lot for a company where they all, after a few years, leave us. She's a visionary, and she repositioned Lord & Taylor as an upscale department store, more attractive, recapturing its longtime reputation. She has kept the core customer and attracted a new generation of shoppers. She has succeeded in bringing back an upscale mood. Ms. Elfers is a graduate of Bucknell University, receiving her BS in Business Management. She joined Lord & Taylor in 1989, and in 1999 was named Executive Vice President, and in 2000, she became President and CEO of Lord & Taylor. That must say something very special about her. We're very, very proud and privileged to have her. And Ms. Elfers, I won't list all her awards. She's been the recipient of many prestigious awards, beside press recognition, as well as appearing on NBC's Today Show. She was named the Retailer of the Year by Bragg, Mother's Day Committee, as well as on the Board of Trustees of Bucknell University, Board of Directors of the National Retail Federation, and on and on and on. I'm abbreviating it because I'm anxious to have her take the podium, and I'm very pleased and proud to introduce Ms. Elfers. It's a privilege to welcome you to FIT, Ms. Elfers. Thank you. Thank you. I loved it.
You have the same scarf.
Yeah. We're both from Lord & Taylor.
Both our scarves are from Lord & Taylor, so we didn't plan that. Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you for that lovely introduction, Professor. What we're going to do first is we're going to roll a video that shows where Lord & Taylor was and where it is today, and then I'm going to go through the strategy of how we got there. So we're going to start with the video.
First job when I came to New York, I worked in the better dresses department. Dresses, that was their whole thing. It was a good place. You want to get a dress, you go to Lord & Taylor.
I remember getting the box with the rose on it, the rose print and the ribbon, and I remember thinking it was so glamorous.
When I would say I wanted to go out for a little air, and my assistant would say, "You mean the air at Lord & Taylor?"
Through the 60s, Lord & Taylor still had quite a bit of fashion cachet and into the maybe early 70s. And then I think that we really took a wrong turn. Lord & Taylor really lost its fashion quotient and really became very mainstream, carrying brands that were found in much more low-end department stores and really lost any type of a differentiated identity. We knew we couldn't play chicken and egg with the market. We had said we were going to be serious about this, and the only way we were going to have the confidence of the market and the vendor community that we were serious is to really start exiting out of these more mainstream department store vendors that they could find down at the other end of the mall. We dropped within 12 months over $350 million worth of vendors, just got out of them. We had opened stores everywhere, not only secondary malls, but tertiary malls, just crazy places for Lord & Taylor. So it took until 2003 to close 32 of these underperforming stores.
I mean, it's so much better already. I think, under Jane Elfers, it's been a big improvement.
Some of their departments are really good now. I happen to work on 39th Street.
80% of the merchandise that's in Lord & Taylor now was not there 3 years ago.
She can shop with confidence that the merchandise is edited. It's edited with her in mind.
I love that dress. She wants to feel that if she comes into Lord & Taylor, she's coming into a store that has that fashion authority, that what she's buying is in style and a good value.
I myself have been wandering the aisles of Lord & Taylor very recently before I went on a trip to buy some bathing suits.
She's searching. She's looking for a place to call her own, and that's us. And then in 2006, Federated made the announcement that they were going to sell Lord & Taylor. So now we had another set of challenges to go through. We had to sell the company. We had people calling up our people. Oh, you're never going to be sold. If you get sold, it's going to be just for real estate. They're going to chop you up, chop, chop, chop.
We love the fact that they had tremendous value in real estate. But a funny thing happened on the way to the closing, which was the sales that Lord & Taylor was doing was much better than we had imagined it would be.
They really began to get very excited, and particularly Richard Baker really saw the potential and said, this business has turned and they need support and they haven't gotten it, and I see where this can go.
We've approved a budget to spend $250 million to reinvest in a whole series of our stores. In fact, almost every single store will be touched.
You want to go try these on? Yeah.
By the time we're finished, which we expect to be a 3 to 5 year period, all of Lord & Taylor's stores will have been reinvested in
new fitting rooms, new bathrooms, new fixturing. Even carpet and paint is so needed in these stores, and our DC is bringing that to the table. We started working with David Lippman last January on a total reappraisal of the Lord & Taylor brand. This resulted in our $10 million branding campaign, which launched last month. On the media side, the campaign is currently running in all the major fashion magazines. In addition to newspaper and magazines, we are running key billboards in all our states, train stations throughout all our key trading areas, and higher traffic, shorter duration location like the tents at Bryant Park during Fashion Week last month. On the brand packaging side, we introduced new shopping bags and boxes last month. We were very careful not only to keep our logo intact on the new branding campaign, but we went a step further and made it bigger to really celebrate it. We are bringing our branding campaign alive in all our stores as well by using some of the key images and phrases from the campaign. For holiday, we will be introducing a great new holiday shopping bag, as well as a very innovative ROP campaign that will run from Thanksgiving through Christmas. In addition to all this, we've dramatically upgraded the look of our promotional advertising, both in direct mail and in ROP. As you can see by these shots from our fall fashion book and from our newspaper ads from the last 2 months, we are moving up the promotional bar in lockstep with our merchandising and branding initiatives. We have also started to test new services in select markets, which include basic tailoring while you wait, or more complex tailoring with next-day delivery. Our customers are reacting very favorably in these test markets, and we will continue to push the service level up throughout all of Lord & Taylor as we continue to move the overall brand positioning higher. Dorothy Shaver, who was president of Lord & Taylor in the 40s and 50s, really put American designers on the map.
I go way back. I'm one of the young designers that they discovered.
The window displays are one of the principal attractions. It was a dream to have your clothes in the windows at Lord & Taylor. And every Wednesday they changed. All of 7th Avenue would wait till Wednesday morning to go up and see those windows go up.
There's too many examples in recent years of great designers that are out of business because they didn't have the capital. Lord & Taylor is really creating an incubator for designers, giving them the insight into what the consumer wants, but also giving them the time and the space to grow into a successful business.
Creative Design Studios really is going back to what Dorothy Shaver wanted to do, which was bring in American designers and put them in the windows and make them important. We're bringing them in now and putting them on the sales floor and making them important. So it's like a circle.
What I try to do is make pieces that are classic or simple or basic or whatever, but they have enough simplicity that a customer can bring themselves to the product, hopefully.
I still think I want to bring pigtails.
I think the synergy between my philosophy and what the team at Lord & Taylor is looking for now is that there's an understanding that clothes can be beautiful, they can be poetic, they can have romance, and yet they can still be practical and a good value. They don't have to cost a lot of money.
People will really be driven in stores because if you know where to go to get these designers, it's a nice service to offer, and it's a great way to steer our readers too.
Well, I'm really excited about the new, improved Lord & Taylor. I'm so glad to see it's being revitalized.
I think that the modern department store has to be a place that you go to get ideas and see fresh new talent.
It's a store that belongs in the heart of America.
It really is so important to understand everything that came before and how much history is really in this brand. And I think when you walk in, you're going to get that chill of this is Lord & Taylor, this is America's oldest department store, but you're going to feel how the present meets the past and that this is a brand that has evolved with the times but stayed true to its essence.
Okay, so that's a little bit about the background of Lord & Taylor and what we've been through for the last 182 years. What I'm going to cover today is really focused on the business side of the strategy to reposition Lord & Taylor and really where it emanated from. The story really starts back in 1999 with the Mckinsey Study. Mckinsey, most of you have probably heard of, is a major consulting firm, worldwide consulting firm based in the United States with several offices scattered throughout the globe. We worked with Mckinsey back in 1999. They did an 18-month study on Lord & Taylor. And really what they came back with was the brand equity of Lord & Taylor was here, but the experience the customer was getting was down here. We got terrible marks for casual merchandise, terrible marks for any fun whatsoever in the store. Really stodgy, really old, only known as a store where your grandmother would shop, dress-up clothing, a prom dress, a special occasion dress, a suit, a tie, something that for, communion, that type of clothing, but nothing for the modern woman or man and nothing that was going to appeal to anyone who was or going to be relevant to a new generation. So they came back and they said, your brand equity is so great, they were a little bit surprised by how strong the equity still was. They said that you are going to have this room and you can reposition this brand, but in order to reposition this brand, it is going to be extremely complex, it is going to take a long time to do it, and it's going to take an integrated series of events. And we'll come back to that word integrated a couple times. So when I got the job, I guess McKinsey started the study in 1999. It finished it up, started in late 1998, finished it up in late 1999. My predecessor, who was there during the study, was not a firm believer in the study and felt that, everything was pretty much okay the way it was. He retired in 2000, and that was when I was promoted into the job. And what we really needed to do is we really needed to come up with a game plan and a strategy based on the McKinsey study in order to get us from this dowdy, stodgy, old-fashioned retailer that no one thought was any good and was only for 90-year-olds into a modern, dynamic fashion retailer, which was really where the roots of Lord & Taylor are. So we came up with the 7-step strategy to get it done. The first step was to right-size the real estate portfolio. Then we had to remix and upgrade the merchandise assortments, simplify the store layouts, rethink the complete sales promotion effort, improve the physical conditions of all the stores, launch a marketing campaign to let people know what we were doing, internally develop a culture of communication and collaboration within the organization. So we really had our work cut out for us. I knew that rationalizing the real estate was going to have to be the first step. What had happened during the 90s is May Company had opened all these stores that had no business opening. It opened them in these tertiary and secondary markets. They would open a store in North Carolina, a store in Texas, a store in Colorado. There was no strategy. The only reason that May Company chose to open those Lord & Taylor stores was a defensive play against Federated. They did not want Macy's to open in those malls. So wherever they were choosing to open a sister May Company store, because May Company had like 7 or 8 divisions at the time, the mall, our real estate people, the May people would say, oh, we'll put Lord & Taylor at the other end. So we'll put a Hex in a Lord & Taylor, or a Filene's in a Lord & Taylor. So they really kind of sacrificed Lord & Taylor in order to keep Macy's out of these malls and to keep Macy's from competing with their big May department stores. So we really had gotten ourselves into a mess during the 1990s. We had spent $600 million opening stores that were doing less than $100 a square foot. It really was an unmitigated disaster, and they needed to be closed. So we weren't spending the capital in the stores that we had and the stores that were doing really well that needed the upgrades. We were spending it on all these stores that we were opening. So we said to ourselves, we've got to get these stores closed. So what we did is we went to the board of directors of May Company. It took about 2 years to really get their attention on this. I started in 2000, and it took till the end of 2003 in order for the board to agree that we could close these 32 underperforming doors. So we made the announcement in July 2003 that we were going to close these 32 underperforming doors, and we were going to put them in a separate division, and we were going to be left with the real estate that was the best, most trafficked real estate in the best malls in the country. So now we had a real estate base that could support the repositioning of the merchandise. We were now in the Northeast corridor. We got out of Florida, we got out of Texas, we got out of Colorado. We got out of a couple places that really weren't successful for Lord & Taylor. If you think about Lord & Taylor as a brand, it's a Northeastern brand. It started in New York City. Its core competencies are classification businesses, sweaters, coats, dresses, swimwear, things that you really need seasons for, things that highly reliant on seasonal businesses, and it just wasn't working for us in the southern and western climates. So now we had a base that was really in Washington, D.C., Metro New York, Boston, and sprinkled a little bit in Chicago and Detroit. So really the climate was perfect now, and the stores, as I said, that we were in and the malls we were in were the best malls in the country. So we really had a great core to work from. Upgrading the merchandising was really next. We were very one-dimensional, as I had mentioned before, very driven into special occasion, dress-up, career-type clothing. We did not have anything that was more modern, and we hadn't even touched on the contemporary businesses at all. So what we needed to do is we needed to fix that. So the month after, in July, we announced the closing of the 32 stores. In August, we went into the market. I went into the market, and we canceled out of $350 million worth of vendors that were more moderate and more mainstream. So over 20% of the business we were doing at the time, we went into those vendors and said we were no longer going to carry that product. So it was things like Liz Claiborne, Tommy Hilfiger, Nautica, Chows, Monet, Playtex, tons of names you guys might see if you go into a Macy's or into one like a Dillard's, something like that. But we knew that we were never going to be able to win carrying the same product as they carry at the other end of the mall. Number one, those Macy and those other type of stores are usually double the size of Lord & Taylor. So we were never going to compete on assortment. We were never going to compete on price, because that's just not the game we were going to play, the price game. Our expense structure is not set that way, nor would it ever be. And we just knew that unless we gave the customer a reason to come back to Lord & Taylor as a differentiated specialty store, it wasn't going to work for us. So we went in and we got out of $350 million worth of volume in in 12 months. So that was a big deal. That was a really big deal. And I think when we first started the repositioning, I think a lot of people didn't think, number one, that we were going to be serious. I think a lot of people rooted for Lord & Taylor. There's a lot of support out in the vendor community. As you saw by the video, the designers are so supportive of Lord & Taylor. Everyone's got a Lord & Taylor story. I had my first job there. I got my first dress there. My aunt used to work there. They all have a good feeling about it. But I don't think too many people thought we were going to be able to pull off the repositioning of Lord & Taylor, and most likely because it's never been done. And I think that's something you guys really need to think about when you think about Lord & Taylor. There's brands like Burberry and Prada and Gucci that have reinvigorated themselves. Like a Burberry, they've gone back into their archives and they've reinvented themselves, but they're singular one-dimensional specialty stores. If you think about department stores or specialty department stores, there hasn't never been one who has been able to go from being almost obsolete to coming back and really being in the mix. You just think about the department store names. There's hundreds of names in the last 15 to 20 years that have gone away. You think about the Altmans and the Gimbels and the Bambergers and the Marshall Fields and the Filenes and the Hecks and the Bonwit Tellers. The list just goes on and on and on and on. So we didn't have a roadmap. There was no one to say, oh, let's try to do this or let's follow in the footsteps of this and that. We really needed to forge our own territory. That's why I think there was probably a lot of people who, as I said, wished for us to do it, but really didn't think we would. I think when we closed those 32 stores, we got people's attention. It's very, very commonplace today to open the paper and read about store closures. And it's very commonplace to read about stores deciding to make those closures. Back in 2003, when we made that announcement we were going to divest those 32 stores, I had reporters calling me, asking me, what does divest mean? That is how much they hadn't heard it. Usually more is always good for retailers, not less. So they really couldn't believe that we were choosing to close these 32 stores. Then when we went in and we dropped vendors like Liz Claiborne, which was a $100 million sales vendor for Lord & Taylor, or Tommy Hilfiger or Nautica or all those other people, I think then they really knew between the closing of the real estate and the dropping of these vendors that we really were serious about what we were going to do. So we went to drop the vendors, and then we decided to go after other vendors, which we thought would be important to the mix. So we started to develop those relationships in about 2004 into 2005. We would go to the vendor community, we would work with them, try to get the relationship going on the vendors we wanted to sell us, try to tell them what we were doing. And at the same time, we kind of pioneered a lifestyle merchandising concept within Lord & Taylor. As I'd said before, we really had only had dress-up career merchandise. We needed to have modern merchandise, and we needed to have contemporary merchandise. So what we decided to do in the apparel areas is split all the merchandise into 3 categories: contemporary, modern, and updated classic. When I started the repositioning, 90% of the product in the store was updated classic. Today, 40% is updated classic, 40% is modern, and 20% is contemporary. So we've dramatically moved those assortments into a younger, more relevant generation, be it contemporary for people like you guys in this room, and modern, really, if you think about it, as a 30 to 35 to 40-year-old or 45-year-old customer. So that was done very thoughtfully. It's a lot more complex than I just made it sound. We made sure that we had contemporary merchandise not only in apparel, but we had contemporary merchandise in shoes to go with contemporary merchandise in handbags to go with contemporary merchandise in men's. So if a contemporary customer came in Lord & Taylor to buy an outfit, she had a shoe to go with it or a handbag to go with it. And if a guy came in to buy it, the same thing. So we really started to pioneer that concept. The next thing we had to attack was simplifying the store layout. When I first started, there was merchandise all up and down the aisles, piled on tables, sale, $9.99, red signs everywhere, merchandise spilling off the floor. We had so much merchandise in the store because we had gotten so moderate in our content that it was just like you felt like you walked in and it was just everywhere, claustrophobic and cluttered. Today, 85% of the merchandise that's in Lord & Taylor, meaning 85% of the vendors we carry, we did not carry 4 years ago. So if you think about taking all the 47 Lord & Taylor stores and completely emptying them out except for polo and cosmetics, and bringing in all new merchandise for every rack, that's basically what we've done in the last 3 to 4 years. And on top of that, we've cut the number of SKUs that we carry by 50%. So not only is all the merchandise new, we've cut the amount of styles that we have in the store by 50%. So we have dramatically cleaned up the clutter in Lord & Taylor and really focused and edited the merchandise assortments. At the same time, the new vendors we've brought in are much more expensive, upscale specialty vendors. So bringing in those new vendors and cutting the SKUs by 50%, you can imagine how many less units are on the selling floor today than there were 3 or 4 years ago. And we've gotten very high marks from our customers for really cleaning up the store. The next piece we had to go through was rethinking the advertising. We had done couponing for years in the newspaper to the point where we had those little scissors where you like cut out the coupon and bring this into the store. We immediately cut that out. We got rid of that overnight, so we had to kind of circle all that for a year. In addition, we had really cluttered mailing pieces, very moderate looking. We had used sketch-based advertising for years that had become very moderate. So we went in, cleaned up the couponing, and also started to add much more fresh fashion photography. So we started to show people the new vendors that we had. Simultaneously, during all this, we were working on communication and collaboration. When I got the job that I'm in now, we were very siloed, the organization. People did not know what the other people were doing. The senior management team was not communicating with the other parts of the business. The store people, the senior merchants, the GMMs and DMMs, had been told by my predecessor that they were not allowed to go to stores. He did not want them to go to the stores. So they weren't really allowed to go to the stores because every time they went to the stores, they said they looked terrible, so that the head of the stores didn't want to hear it. So the head of stores went to my predecessor and said, I don't want to hear the merchants saying the stores don't look good. So he just said, fine, you can't go to the stores anymore. So you guys can take that another step and realize that that was a very unhealthy environment for us to be in. So I started talking about communication and collaboration. And those are two words, if you come to Lord & Taylor today, anyone who works for Lord & Taylor knows those two words, communication and collaboration. And it was good we started working on that because it was going to serve us well as we went through the next few years. So we kept working on this re-merchandising strategy and all these different things. And then in February 2005 came the news that May Company was going to be no more. The CEO of May Company was let go. And a month later, we found out that Federated was buying May Company. So all hell broke loose at Lord & Taylor. Everyone's like, what's going to happen? The rumors started flying that all the other May department stores were going to be changed over into Macy's, and all those people weren't going to have jobs. So if you were a buyer for Marshall Fields, or you were a buyer for Hex, or a buyer for Filene's, they weren't going to need you anymore. So all throughout 2005, they started making those announcements about the other divisions being converted and rolled into Macy's. At the same time, headhunters were calling our people left and right saying, you should get out of Lord & Taylor. It's never going to survive. They're never going to keep you around. They're going to, chop you up for real estate, and now's the time to go. Thinking back to that communication and collaboration, we had been talking about communication and collaboration now for 5 years. We had gone from this place where you weren't allowed to go to the stores to everyone knew everything. So we had gone from an organization like this, we were now an organization like this, and we had conversations all the time with our people. I can tell you that we did not lose a single person during the merger of May and Federated to another company because of that communication and collaboration, and because our people that work at Lord & Taylor knew that we would always be upfront with them and keep them posted on what was going on. So very importantly, we were able to hold the organization together. Then we got through 2005. Then we get to 2006, and Federated comes out and says, you know what, we're going to sell Lord & Taylor as Lord & Taylor. So now the phone starts ringing again. Oh, you're never going to be sold. No one's going to buy you. Whoever buys you is going to chop you up into real estate. They just want you for your Fifth Avenue building, blah, 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 blah. So this goes on. In the meantime, I had to lead the sale of the company, so you had to go have these meetings with bankers and prospective buyers. So that took about the first 6 months of the year. We did just presentation after presentation after presentation to different people who were interested in the company in different banks. The short end of the story is we sold the company in record time, and we sold it for a record price. So we were able to sell the company in 6 months, and we were able to sell it for $1.2 billion, which was a great price according to the Federated side, and also a great price according to NRDC, which bought Lord & Taylor. So both sides were happy, which is really kind of what you look for in a deal like that. So now NRDC has acquired Lord & Taylor. If you look back and think about the steps we needed to put in place, there were two of them that were really missing. We were not able to ever get the capital from May Company to do the two missing steps. One was to put money back into the stores, because if you remember, they had spent the $600 million on the stores that we closed. And the second one was getting a branding campaign out there to tell someone other than ourselves that we were better than we used to be. So NRDC comes on the scene, they buy us. They have committed already to put $250 million worth of capital over the next 5 years to renovate all the stores. They gave us money to do a $10 million branding campaign, which started in the fall of 2007. We were then able to continue that campaign into the spring of 2008, and now we're also in the middle right now of doing our third campaign in the fall of 2008. We're doing things in taxis. I don't know if you guys take taxis, but we have a lot of advertising in the taxis, which has been really successful getting tourism in. We're on the radio with Robert Verdi. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Robert Verdi, but he has been very instrumental in an advertising campaign for us, which has really been perception changing and has really also gotten us a lot of new people in and been very successful in the markets that we've run it in. And we have just started this past June to test cable televisions in markets using Robert Verdi to show the changes at Lord & Taylor, and that has also been very, very successful. None of that would have been possible without NRDC and the funding that they brought with them. In addition, the creative design studios, we have gone after designers to help us design product for our proprietary brands. Joseph Abboud just did a huge launch for us. It was in all our windows for the past 3 weeks. It's called Black Brown 1826. He developed the line. It just hit the floors in August. It's been an unbelievable success. We just had a huge party last Thursday night that GQ sponsored with us. There were 600 people there. A lot of stars, a lot of celebrities, a lot of newspaper, a lot of press. Really, really great event. And like I said, the business has been fantastic. Charles Nolan is helping us on Kate Hill, and we have other designers helping us with our other proprietary lines. So really stepping out of the box and not just sitting and making our own product by saying, oh, this cable sweater sold well last year, let's make it again. Really getting true designers behind the product and really designing it has been something very innovative and not something that you're going to see in a store the size of Lord & Taylor. So what we need to do is we need to continue to work on what we're working on. We're not trying to dramatically change things. We've done the dramatic changing. I like to call it the heavy lifting by changing the merchandise assortments and closing the 32 stores, doing the branding campaign, getting the organization focused on communication and collaboration, and really tightening those relationships with the vendor community. What we need to do over the next 3 years is really continue to establish the brand identity through these kind of breakthrough advertising campaigns and radio campaigns that we're doing. We're going to continue to fine-tune the merchandise assortments and upgrade the merchandise assortments, but we're not going to blow them up like we've already done. We're pretty happy with the vendor structure we have. There aren't too many vendors today that we want, that we don't have, or at least that won't speak to us about future potential of coming into Lord & Taylor. We're going to work on renovating and right-sizing our flagship. Our store in New York is too big, so we're going to look to see if we can shrink that and get some opportunity by leveraging NRDC. The company that did buy us is very savvy with real estate. They have their roots in real estate, so they'll be very helpful for us in making the right decision on the flagship store. We had no internet previously. It was just, we did $5 million on the internet a year, and we were still where we went around with the shopping cart filling it from like different stores. We just launched the internet 3 weeks ago. We worked on it for 9 months. We got a host of outside services to help us. Now we have a full-fledged internet, much more robust, and we feel that we have opportunity within the next 5 years to have that be our #1 store. So that was a long time coming. The advantage of us just getting on the internet and really missing all those 10 years or 15 years before us was that we were able to leapfrog from technology over everyone else and really open a site that has a lot more functionality than some of the much more established sites. So we were able to do it a lot cheaper too, because technology has changed so much. So that was an opportunity for us. We went after it. And as I said, we think that can be our #1 store in 3 to 5 years. And then continuing to leverage the real estate expertise of our owners. We have a lot of our stores are owned, and we owned a lot of land on our stores. So there's opportunities in Stamford where our owners are really from. They live in Greenwich. Surprise. So what they're doing is they're really working with us to take that Stanford store out of Whole Foods to the Stanford store, redo the Stanford store, bring in more traffic by driving those Greenwich people into the Whole Foods, things like that they're very, as I said, savvy with. So there's a lot of excitement that we can use to leverage them going forward. So we've done a lot over the last, I'd say, 5 years. We have a lot more to do. I'm certainly not here to tell you that it's done and, we can just dance off into the sunset. It's certainly a very trying time right now, particularly in the last couple months with everything that's going on. I'm sure you guys read the newspapers. There's a tremendous amount of store closures, a tremendous amount of bankruptcies, more than we've ever seen before. Usually you read about these things in January. After Christmas is really when people decide, if they can't make it during the holiday season. It's usually when they announce these store closures and bankruptcies is usually in January and February. We've seen, I think, 2,900 stores close just through the month of August and several very high visibility of bankruptcy. So we expect to see a lot more of that through this Christmas. The pundits are out there saying that they think this will be the worst Christmas in at least 20 years, if not 40. So we've certainly got our work cut out for us. And yet again, the communication and collaboration that we've established will come in very strongly as we go through this very trying, what I believe will be a very trying fourth quarter. But spring will come, it always does, and that's what we'll look forward to at Lord & Taylor. So that's our story, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have about that. Yeah? Yeah, we do about $1.4 billion in volume, and our New York store is very underpenetrated. We do less than 10% of our business in our New York building, whereas Saks does 25% of their business just in their New York flagship, Bloomingdale's does over 20, and Macy's does over 20. So we really think that when we talk to these outside consultants who we worked with when we were setting up the internet, and when they did the analysis and they looked at the volume that the big flagships do, and they looked at the volume that the internet does, they were shocked at how much opportunity we had. And they think that within 3 to 5 years, we can be doing $150 million on the internet just by putting in a robust system. But we had to spend a lot of money to do it. We have a fulfillment center, a separate fulfillment center in New Jersey, which we didn't have before. We have a call center so they can be on 24/7 so they can chat. We had to invest in that. We had to invest in a whole new way of bringing in the goods. We had to put in a lot more inventory behind the internet than we had ever put in before. We needed a software provider, so we had to go out and interview and hire a software provider. So all these pieces had to come together to the puzzle to give us the platform in order to grow. But when you look at the conversion, which is how many people come on versus how many people buy, our conversion was the lowest in the industry. Not surprising based on this very archaic internet that we had. We were like at a 0.4 conversion. Other department stores, like J. Crew's at 8.2, but just you can't use them because they kind of started off as a catalog retailer. People that we would compare ourselves with, 3%, 4% conversion rates. So just even getting up to a 2% conversion rate from a 0.3 based on our visitors, just millions of dollars worth of volume. So we're going to put a lot of resources behind that because we think that's probably our single biggest volume driver that we have over the next few years. Yeah, you know what, we're not that well known outside because our whole thing for 182 years has been America's oldest department store, America, America, America. So we don't have, like last year when all the tourists you probably heard were coming over at Christmas time with empty suitcases, filling them up with New York department store merchandise because it was so much cheaper than it was overseas. We really didn't enjoy a lot of that because we're not well known over there. Bloomingdale's, they have a presence, they're well known, they're opening in Dubai. Saks has a presence overseas. Macy's being Macy's and being in all the movies and the parade and everything has a presence. Lord & Taylor does not. By doing that taxi that we started to do last December, it really drove a lot more traffic in, and we're also working in major airports overseas where we have a lot of people coming in to see if we can get our name a little bit more known. We think short term, and by short term I probably mean 5 to 7 years, we probably have a lot more opportunity because we're a more national name than our real estate reach would show. Just really the East Coast. A lot of people in Florida where we used to be, Texas, Florida, they know about us. That's where we think we can really reach out and be a little bit more nationwide than Northeastern. So we think we'll go after that once we get the Northeastern part set. And then hopefully someday we can get, well known. Our owner just bought Hudson's Bay. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Hudson's Bay. It's Canada's largest retailer. The NRDC that owns us just closed on Hudson Bay about a month ago. So there could be a lot of opportunity for us in Canada, and they have the right climate. So that's kind of exciting for us too. Yeah? Well, we didn't, like I said, no one knew what was going to happen, but where we were going, if we had kept with what we were doing, was out of business in a hurry. So there was no way we would be able to sustain the path that we were taking. We were very, very careful as we added we planned to drop, when we dropped those vendors, we knew that we were going to take a major hit in sales and a major hit in profits over that 18-month period as we circled getting out of those Liz Claiborne's and Tommy Hilfigers and Nauticas. But we put together a 5-year plan before we started that showed that we would take that hit and then how we would level set and start to grow again. And we were very much achieved and in a couple years beat that plan as far as not only sales but also the margin that goes with it. So we were very careful on the vendor structure that we added in to make sure we could be profitable, and at the same time, obviously the expense line, we had to be really careful. When we dropped the 32 stores, we had to make major cuts in the expense. Since we've been acquired by NRDC and we're not part of May Company anymore, we've had to add a lot of things in that a standalone retailer has to have. Like we had to add in a treasury department because May used to do it for us. We had to have more robust HR because May used to do it for us. We had to have our own IT because May used to do it for us. So we had to be really, really thoughtful how we made that all work and make the cuts and the additions to the expense column. So it was a balanced approach. It wasn't just like, let's see if it works. We had a plan. Yeah. Only for internet. I was referring back to internet. Yeah, not in stores. No, I think the opportunity, and it's not tomorrow, but what I think the opportunity for Lord & Taylor is right now is to get through this economic climate. This is nothing short of an economic crisis climate, so that's really kind of what everyone in retail is operating in, because the traffic is down so much over the last few months. People are literally scared to death. They're sitting home watching their television like the stock market like they would a hurricane. So they're just really nervous and they're not shopping a lot. So you have to kind of live in that moment right now, and I think this economic malaise is going to last a little bit longer than this Christmas. We don't predict really any positive information coming out until 2010. So we're really in that mode of where's the expense, where's the sales level really going to be, how are we going to manage through this, and focused on that. So that's my short-term priority for the organization. Longer term, if you look at Lord & Taylor, 8 out of the top 10 stores are freestanding stores, meaning they're not in a mall. Westchester sits by itself in a leafy suburb in Eastchester, New York. It does $100 million a year in volume, and it doesn't have home. Just in clothes and accessories, in the middle of someone's neighborhood, it does $100 million. Garden City, Manhasset, Westfield, Ridgewood, they're all freestanding stores. Our customer loves those stores. She doesn't have to fight them all. She can drive right in. She can get a parking space. She knows the sales associate. She knows where her merchandise is. They're very wealthy places, wealthy suburbs, and they buy a lot, and they're our most productive stores. I can't anticipate Lord & Taylor down the road opening more freestanding stores in an off-mall format. Maybe not 120,000 square feet like our stores are now, maybe 60,000 square feet, because that's a lot easier to get a box at 60,000 square feet than it is to find 120,000 square feet. And I think there's different things we can do with Lord & Taylor. I don't think every Lord & Taylor we open has to sell everything we have. I could see Lord & Taylor opening with apparel and accessories. Maybe it wouldn't have men's, maybe it wouldn't have kids, maybe it wouldn't have intimate apparel. There's different things that you could put together and mix and match based on what the location of the store was, but I see growth potential for us in those freestanding stores. So that would be. International, no, not at the moment. I really think that's a last priority unless there's a connection with Canada, with the stores our owner just bought. There's a lot of stores up there. If we want to try to open a store up in Canada, see how it goes, I think that would be well worth the effort. I just don't think it would be well worth the effort right now. I think there's only, I'm a firm believer in there's only X amount of bandwidth within every organization, and right now with everything that's going on, our band is stretched to here. trying to decide to open a store up in Vancouver and figuring out how to get goods there, the exchange rate, all that kind of stuff is not going to be the thing that I want the guys to work on right now. But I do think that once we get through this, it's a great opportunity for us to give Canada a try. Yeah. Well, I think the competition really was much more department store because our product assortments were the exact same. So we had the exact same assortment as the May company down the mall, exact same assortment as Hex, exact same assortment as Filene's. I think now we have a lot of competition. Specialty stores are our competition, not only the more traditional ones that you would think of like an Ann Taylor or a Chico's or a Talbot's, but I think places like J. Crew are much more competition for us. If you look at our cashmere program and how much business we do in cashmere, you look at how much business we do in sweaters, you go into a J. Crew in the fall, you see how much sweater, how much cashmere business they have. I think Bloomingdale's is our competition in some ways, but they skew much younger. They're very, very contemporary in nature, but there are product overlaps. Nordstrom's probably closer to what Lord & Taylor is. Nordstrom really beats us in two categories, men's and cosmetics. They have much more advanced assortments. We do much better than they do in accessories and apparel. So we complement each other nicely when we're in malls, but I would still consider them competition. And then the internet is huge competition for us coming from anywhere. I mean, no matter who logs on to what, that is our competition. So we don't think as narrowly as, it's just Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom. It's specialty stores, it's Target, it's the internet, it's, sometimes it's Neiman Marcus, sometimes it's Macy's. So it's coming from everywhere. Yes, Charles Nolan is a designer. We carry his product also, but he designs our private label, which is called Kate Hill. We have 3 big private labels in the company. One's Black Brown 826, which is the new Joseph Abboud design line for men's. One's Kate Hill, which is Charles Nolan, and one's Context, which is Jeff Mashi that used to work for Chaikin, who designs that line for us. So we have designers in this company called Creative Design Studios, which isn't even located in Lord & Taylor at 39th and 5th. It's located down at 26th Street. And they have their own offices on the river, their own design studios, and we work with them in concert with the designers and with the CDS overseas agents and design the private label product, which makes up about 12% of our volume. The rest, like design, people that we needed to have relationships were Bobbi Brown. Take Bobbi Brown as for an example. We had no makeup artistry business. We have Bobbi Brown now in a bunch of stores. NARS, we had no business there. We have them in like 30 stores. Hugo Boss for men's. Tommy Bahama, 7 Jeans, Juicy Couture, UGG, Coach, Cole Haan. I mean, the list just goes on and on. You'll have to come visit. Right, and I think probably a lot of you would probably think in your minds it probably wouldn't have anything for you. Would you think that? I mean, just be honest. Would you think maybe they wouldn't have? Right. I would just really encourage you guys to go up there at some point. I'm not going to give you a homework assignment, but she might. But if you just go up there to 39th and 5th, I think if you look on the second floor, which would be a floor that, some of you are shaking your head that have been there, the floor would probably be most attractive to you, the first and second floors. I think you would be really surprised. I am just the constant recipient of hearing, oh my God, I can't believe that second floor. I don't want to tell anyone. It's the best kept secret. So there's a lot of things there that would probably surprise you. It's just easy to shop too, because unfortunately there aren't that many people there, so that's why the store's a little oversized and we need to shrink it down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Split. Mm-hmm. How about up there? Well, I don't have one. Does that answer it? I'm okay. I don't think you need one. I think it's great to have it, but I don't think it's a prerequisite. I really don't. I think that's a personal choice. If that's something that you want to do, and if something that you want to have in your toolkit, then I applaud you and say go for it. I probably wouldn't say to go for it right away. I'd get some experience first, and then probably go back once you've had some experience under your belt. But I don't think that it's 100% necessary.
What were you thinking in those first 10 years before you went to a higher role?
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking we need to make these changes, or did you see a trend?
No, I started out at Bamberger's, which you guys wouldn't probably remember, which was part of Macy's, and it was owned by Macy's, but it was one of those things where it's just a separate name, and they came and changed them all over to Macy's. So I worked for the combined company for a while, and got a call from Lord & Taylor one day, and back in 1989 when I was a buyer at Macy's, and I went over there in 1989, and then went from buyer to divisional merchandise manager, then a bigger area, then a general merchandise manager, then an EVP, then this job, and really it was all based in apparel. And I saw the changes. When I came in 1989, there was a lot of good vendors. There was, the Ferragamos of the world, and Ferragamo's not as relevant today. It's much, much higher end and not as important, but back then it was, very much a designer name and very important. And I saw what happened, and I saw every year what would happen is we would just lose more and more and more vendors, because what was happening is my predecessor was remaking Lord & Taylor in the image of a May company. His background was May company. He came from May company. His jobs had been sales promotion and home store for May company. Never any apparel, never any accessories. So he did what he knew, which was to change it and really to bring in a matrix type of thinking that had the vendor structure. And then when we started opening all these stores, I had history from Macy's, some of the places we were opening these stores. And I wasn't going to make a difference. This is all being decided between the CEO of the company and May Company St. Louis, which was our parent headquarters. And I would say, hey, we used to have a store there in Macy's. We couldn't even sell product at Macy's. There's no way Lord & Taylor is going to be successful there. We just kept opening stores. So people were really frustrated, and it was rough. And like I said, the culture and the atmosphere was not a good atmosphere in that place. But I think when you really understood that McKinsey study and you saw how much people really loved Lord & Taylor and still were hanging in there even through all the changes, you could see how you could do it, but you knew it was going to be really, really hard. I'll tell you now, I had no idea. I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't think it was going to be impossible. I think mostly everyone thought, I know that they're going to try, but it's never going to pull it off. And the more they would say, you're never going to pull it off, the more we were going to pull it off. That's just kind of how we are over there. So it's we'll just keep the blinders on and keep going. But everyone was proud, to be a part of it and happy to bring it back to where it was. People were not happy with the way that store looked and what it had become. So it was energizing in some ways and exhausting in others, but I think, well worth the effort. Try to save it. It's America's oldest department store. I've always said I'd like to keep it that way as long as I'm running it. I don't want to be known as the former oldest department store. So every day I walk in, I'm like, let's keep going. I know. Now I've got you telling me too. Yeah.
So last week we had David Wolf
Uh huh. Mm-hmm.
and he expressed that he learned that the delivery dates of 3 months in advance could be a little bit of a financial hindrance to a lot of retailers by not, by things going on sale and the actual season they're in, because the stores are under the impression that people shop 3 months in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your reaction?
Is he just talking about how we should deliver merchandise more where now? Is that what he was saying? Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that, and we've done that certainly within the 13% of business that make up proprietary brand. We decide what merchandise we're going to deliver what month, and also we're a little bit of an advantage from that point because we are all now in that northeastern climate. So we don't go out there buying different seasons at different times. We really try to keep it much more in season. And we have control of a lot of that, not just with our private labels, but with our domestic people. Just to give you an example, we moved when we did the plans for this fall, we moved $100 million worth of receipts from the third quarter into the fourth quarter based on how we sold the goods last year. So we took $100 million basically in heavier type things, coats, sweaters, cold weather, gloves, moved it out of September and October and moved it into November and December. So I think that probably speaks back to what he was trying to say, to get more closer to need. And it really gives you a lot more flexibility in the inventories. You can spin through the merchandise, and then if you need to get back into it, it just gives you that luxury versus being kind of backed up at the beginning of the season. So I do agree with him. Yeah.
How do you feel that as a woman,
Mhm.
your position affected the communication and collaboration within the company? Was that your idea, or?
Yeah, no, it was definitely my idea. I mean, it had to happen, and it wasn't easy. You know, it was one of those things like, you're going to collaborate, damn it. Like, you know, get in the room and you're not getting out until you do it. It wasn't easy. And when I tell you that we bring those words up every day to this day, I'm not just saying that to say it, we talk about it. And it's very obvious now when someone doesn't communicate and collaborate, they stick out. It's so different because you're like, the whole kind of place turns to that person. They're like, hey, you're not part of it. So getting that instilled in the culture, man, woman, whatever, there's no way you can have a high performing team without a team that collaborates. Doesn't mean they have to love each other. They have to respect each other, and they have to know how to work cross-functionally in order to get things done. And that's the only way you can have a successful organization. And like I said, if we had not done that, number one, we never would have been able to pull off this journey from the brink to where we are, and we never would have been able to withstand the turmoil of the merger or the sale of the company, or even things like I said, this kind of a business environment. We have a lot of really young people, a lot of new people come into the business all the time. I've never seen anything like this. People that are much older than me, they're like, I've been in the business 40 years, I've never seen anything like it. These guys have never seen anything like it. They're just like, oh my God, what's going on? So you got to just really keep talking to them and keep them together. I think from just another question, which you didn't ask, but to answer about a woman, I think that helped with the repositioning of the merchandise because the store is mainly geared to women. A little bit over 80% of the merchandise we sell is apparel and accessories for women. And I think understanding as a woman that you don't want to go into a store and fight through a bunch of crap and just a sea of goods and sale racks. Like, you want to go into a store that's organized, neat, focused, salespeople and sales associates that can help you, that can answer your questions, that want to save you time, that are friendly. Like, those kinds of things were really important. And a lot of the general merchandise managers are women at Lord & Taylor, so I think using that was very helpful in the repositioning of thinking it from a woman's point of view. If you look around at most retailers, if not all the department stores, they're all run by men. So I'm not sure that when you walk the floor as a man in a store that's geared to women, you necessarily see what that shopper sees. So I think that was an advantage. Mm-hmm. We're all pretty much American. I mean, we make some of the merchandise overseas for the proprietary brand, but the designers that design it are American designers. That was really what Dorothy Shaver started back in the 40s and 50s. Everyone else is trying to copy and go to Paris and London and do this and that, and she just said, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take these American designers, Claire McCardle, Bonnie Cashin, Bill Blass, Norell, all these famous names, and I'm going to put them in the windows in Fifth Avenue, and I'm really going to stand behind American designers. So we pretty much have evolved that way. When you look at the European designers that are out there right now, or the really well-known ones, that's not who we're chasing after, mostly from a price issue. There's no culture, there's no internal statement within Lord & Taylor that goes, no, American, it has to be American. But if you look at those price points in the designers, the European, they're really prohibitive. Lord & Taylor customer isn't a Prada customer. She's not a Gucci customer. She's not an Escada customer. There's a lot of brands that are just above the price point tolerance that we're going after. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to be in that. And that's just a little bit of the history of why we are geared towards American designers.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. We had seen a lot of competitors go down the road of throwing out their core customer to try to reach out to be attractive to a new customer, and ended up with neither. So we were very careful. That thing I had alluded to before, that kind of contemporary, modern, and updated classic, we made really sure on that updated classic piece, which was our core baby boomer customer who loves us, knows us, and wants to shop us, we made sure that we did not disrupt that customer, and we kept taking that merchandise. Where we got rid of some of the brands that she may have liked, we kept moving upscale in brands that would appeal to a baby boomer customer. So we didn't all of a sudden decide we were going to be completely contemporary and throw out that customer. It was very balanced. So we didn't go from 90% to 40% overnight. We went 90 to 80 to 65 to 40. And at the same time, when we brought those modern brands in, we found out that the baby boomer customer was really responding to the modern brands. She might not make the jump from updated classic all the way to contemporary, but she certainly made the jump from updated classic to modern. So we kept that very much in mind, and we balanced it, I think, very well. We still have a lot of very long-term customers who are very loyal.
I just wanted to know, like, how big of a role is customer service playing in your store? Because a lot of, like, you know, layout and customer service go hand in hand.
Totally.
So is there like a training program?
Yes, we just started about a year ago working with a group called the Jacobian Group. We're spending $15 million over the next 3 years, and it's called Signature Customer Experience. And it's not a customer service program, it's a complete operating model. And what we've done is we've just finished, we're doing it now for I think 13 months. At the end of October, we're going to be finished training all 10,000 associates in the assist level. Then next year, at the end of next year, we'll be at the advise level. And then in 2010, we'll be at the coach level. So there's 3 levels you go through. Obviously, we have turnover. When new people come in, they'll be trained on all those levels. So that is taking a big piece of that, which it's another thing we're doing that other department stores don't do. We took a page out of the specialty store books, and we installed last November traffic counters in every one of our stores. So now we know exactly how many customers come into the store each day. Before, you might call up a store manager and say, what's wrong with your business? And they'll say, oh, it was raining, we had no customers today. They'll give you all these reasons, but you didn't have metrics. We now have a piece of paper that comes out every morning that tells us in Annapolis, Maryland, we had 11,252 people come into the store that day. This is how many came in by hour. This is how many of them we converted. This is how many of them we converted to customers and sold to. So you can see 3 hours, I'm making this up, for 3 hours during the day, we didn't sell one handbag. Well, then you start to go back to the staffing and you look and you see Susie Q and handbags didn't show up today and there was no one on the selling floor. So you can drill right down into it. We've always been able to drill down with the buyers, what we're selling, those types of things, but we never had that visibility on the store side. So as we start to build that and that conversion, those are the kind of the hard pieces of it. We're putting the soft pieces in now, which are the training, the advised, assist, and counsel. Those things coming together are going to bring us to a whole new operating model. So it's very exciting. It's very breakthrough. A lot of people are watching it. A lot of other department stores know we're doing it. And they're very interested to see how it works out. So more to come on that. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you all very much. Thank you.